Attention C blue chip competitors, we are approximately a little less than 20 minutes to planned warning. 20 minutes to planned warning.
Marilyn Krause dedicates her time to sailing as a race official, including for this regatta on Okauchee Lake in Waukesha County.
10 minutes to planned warning.
My husband, Larry, started sailing when he was 9 years old. So it was really one of the passions of his life. And as a result of that, I learned all about sailing. Someone says, what do you need to do to run a signal boat? I always say, you need to be able to count backwards from 10.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Marilyn also dedicates her time to another role in her life, one that could impact her health. She's a participant in a study that could prove to be a major breakthrough in the treatment of Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia.
After I lost my husband to cancer and knowing how important research has been to that, I thought, well, I really can't do anything about cancer or what killed him, but maybe I could do something here.
So once a month, Marilyn travels to Madison because she qualified for a 4-year commitment called the AHEAD Study at UW Health. She's a year and a half into the study under the guidance of Dr. Cynthia Carlson, the chief investigator for the research and a professor of medicine in the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health.
Hi, Marilyn. How are you?
Doing okay.
Yeah, good, good.
The AHEAD study is a study that's really aiming to see if we can prevent Alzheimer's in people whose thinking abilities are normal, who have no symptoms of memory loss, but who have a buildup of a protein that's called amyloid and causes some plaques, which are just sticky deposits that get made into the brain.
In some studies, they are looking at people who do show some decline, but so far, I'm not in that category, I'm glad to say. And they were looking for, the two main criteria were people 65 and older, or people 55 and older who had someone in their family or a family history of dementia or Alzheimer's. So I qualified both ways.
Marilyn's father, Art, died from Alzheimer's in 2018 at the age of 88.
He was the 10th of 10 boys. Keep in mind that my dad lived longer than any of his brothers did. So I don't know if anyone would have developed Alzheimer's because most of them did not live into their 80s. I'm not really sure exactly when my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but it was a slow progression. He died in 2018. I have to say that we noticed things at least 10 years prior to that, and we would always talk about my dad being absent-minded. We didn't notice it as a pattern or anything for quite a while. He never totally lost his speech or anything like that, but he would really struggle to come up with words or phrases. And we could tell he knew what he wanted to say and he just couldn't get it out, which was really frustrating. But I think we all knew something was happening, but we didn't really know where it was going or how quickly it would progress. My dad was well aware of what was happening. He knew he was struggling with names and so on and words. He started struggling with cooking and baking, which obviously was something he really loved. I mean, my dad was a chef. My dad was, I think, about 48 when he finally had his own place called Maniaci's Cafe Siciliano. And they were there for almost 24 years until they retired. He would cook, I think, less often. Our reaction among the 8 of us was just really concern, and the last 3 to 4 years before he died were the really most difficult ones for my mother because she was his caregiver. And they were devoted to each other. He was her main focus, to the point where she wouldn't really take any help. My parents were married for 67 years. They died within 3 months of each other. What I learned from watching my parents go through this was that it's really hard to keep yourself from making suggestions that they don't want. So there's this dynamic that's ever changing.
We'll do a brief physical exam.
Just have you keep your head still but move your eyes to follow my finger.
What's changing now could be very promising for someone like Marilyn, according to Dr. Carlson.
So this study builds on data that we know from other studies where this past year we've had really exciting news, and that this medicine called lecanemab or Leqembi was the first drug approved by the FDA to receive full approval to treat people who have mild cognitive impairment and dementia due to this buildup of this protein called amyloid. That actually heightened the excitement around the AHEAD study because it made it much more likely that this study would show some promising results. It's still not for sure. That's why we have to do these studies to see if they really do help prevent the onset of Alzheimer's. But if it does show that, it would be one of the first trials to really show that there's a way to actually prevent Alzheimer's disease.
Marilyn found out that she has intermediate levels of plaque.
which is really common.
So she undergoes the research procedures every 4 weeks. Participants with higher levels go through it every 2 weeks. Dr. Carlson points out that a person can have intermediate or high levels of amyloid in their brain for decades and never be diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia. She says research is trying to identify why some people progress and others do not. In the AHEAD study, all participants undergo quite a few tests.
All right, now I'm just going to check the strength in your arms. If you can put your arms up like this.
When we line up appointments, they tell me what I'll be getting at each point. There's a physical every time I go in. At certain intervals, there will be a more extensive physical exam where I'll get an EKG. And then, less frequent as time goes on, MRIs and CT scan. Then there's the dreaded cognitive testing.
Begin here and fill in as many squares as you can, one after the other, without skipping any.
Which is always a struggle because you know it's coming, and you hope you've got enough sleep the night before and that you're really sharp, because you just don't want to feel or have it be obvious that you're kind of losing it. So
Ball, flag, tree. Now repeat those words back to me.
ball, flag, tree. A lot of it is memory, but it's also hand-eye coordination, and they'll show you a shape and they'll ask you to duplicate it with paper and pencil.
Please copy this design.
A lot of it is testing your memory and your thought process and critical thinking, things like that.
Then comes the infusion of the placebo, or the drug.
I started the infusions in April of 22.
Marilyn won't find out if she's actually getting the drug until the end of the entire trial, when everyone has completed their 4 years. She will have another brain scan about 2 years into the study and at the very end.
What I'm hoping for with this study then is if we can step back while people are doing fine, thinking clearly, living active, full lives, and start this therapy at a point where they're at a good cognitive level, their thinking abilities are strong, they're not having any symptoms, and then keep them there longer, that's really what we're hoping for.
You just never know when something that you're involved in is really going to be helpful, not only to yourself, but to other people. If this study would prove that Alzheimer's could actually be prevented, that would be big.
If we can push back the onset of Alzheimer's 20 years, so we have 20 more years of good thinking, interaction with our families, getting to our grandkids' weddings or high school graduations, that would be very, very meaningful. And I think we'll get there.
Here's our leader. Bravo 1!
Just like finishing a race, Marilyn hopes she can help the AHEAD study cross the finish line with positive and impactful results.
If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow it through.
What a finish! They're all close.